Yeah, so anyways, hold up. Guys, Mike Malone just got fired.
No way.
Shams, Mike Malone just got
So,
fired.
Is it not
like
Centel?
Moch?
Dude, he just got fired. I don't know. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 5th episode of the Wash Kings podcast, the show where a couple cousins talk hoops, the NBA, and keep you updated on everything you need to know about your Denver Nuggets. I'm your host, Cam Kennedy, and I am joined by my fellow Wash Kings, as always, Pat Kennedy, who was home this past weekend. Pat, it was great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's great to see you as well.
Good. We got the Bear, Kennedy Phillips, in the house. KP, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's almost, end of the school year. I'm almost seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Awesome, man. Good to have you. And Evdog is back in studio. Evan, how were your travels? We missed you the last couple of episodes.
Buongiorno, fellas. It's good to be back. Missed the pod.
We missed you, man. And as always, we are joined.
Spreading the word out in Italy about the Wash Kings.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're going international.
Yeah, get the word out about the Wash Kings. We're here to stay.
Stopped into Croatia, told some basketball players about it.
Yeah, perfect. And as always, we are joined by super producer Matthew Hinnon. Matt, thanks for always being here and helping us out. Hey, just a reminder, because the Wash Kings are not a sponsored podcast yet, we are always down to shout out Dude Wipes because it's the best clean pants down. Pat and I were together for the games Monday night, the national championship game, and a Dude Wipes ad popped up, and we perked up. We got excited. So, Dude Wipes, we're looking for sponsorships. We got you. We got a great show this week for you guys as always. And segment 1, we're going to go over the firing of our beloved coach Mike Malone and what he means to us and the Nuggets. And then we're briefly going to talk about David Adelman's first career game as the head coach of the Denver Nuggets, and was there a vibes resurgence for the Nuggets last night? And then we're briefly going to go over the final 2 games and do some standings talk. But fellas, let's just jump right into it. Mike Malone and Calvin Booth were fired Tuesday morning, and this timing was pretty insane to say the least. It was just a regular Tuesday morning. I was about to go on a walk. I saw the Shams notification pop up, and it says, the Denver Nuggets something. And I was like, okay, what? So I pulled it up, and the graphic right there, Mike Malone was on it. It said fired. 3 games before the postseason, the winningest coach in franchise history, an NBA champion in 2023. I was shocked and a bit pissed off when it first got announced. I thought the timing was awful. I thought it was sort of a bad look. And then Calvin Booth got fired, and we hear even more stories about the kind of relationship that those two guys had. But what were your guys' initial reactions when that news dropped and you started to hear about it?
Yeah, so I heard the news directly from you. You texted us in the group chat, and I was just absolutely stunned. And my first initial thought was, what the hell is Calvin Booth doing? And then later soon found out that Booth was gone too, and I'm like, holy cow, what in the world is going on? And so I also went on a walk to clear my head after scrolling through my phone. I was like, what's going on? Immediately FaceTimed you, Cam, and we kind of talked things out, and I started to feel a little bit better. But curious to see what some of you guys' other thought.
Yeah, I just passed out a test, and I was putting a timer on my phone so that way I kind of knew. I try to walk around every now and then, whatever, and I look at my phone and saw messages just blowing up, and from like everybody that knows I'm a Nuggets fan. My mom texted me, you guys are texting me, one of my coworkers texted me, one of my old college teammates texted me, and I was just like, what is going on? And then I finally saw that it was Malone, kind of same as Pat, and then I was like, just Malone? Like, is this Booth's doing? And then I saw that we let Booth go pretty soon after, and I just was like in shock. I didn't really know what to do. I wanted to just scroll through Twitter, but I had to work. So it took me a while to kind of figure it out because I couldn't really look at my phone for a while. But yeah, pretty crazy stuff.
So I'll give my honest reaction to it. I heard about it the same way Pat did from Cam. And if I'm being honest, my reaction was, oh, I'm not surprised. Now it's late in the season, and that is a bit unprecedented. I realized, especially with the GM being fired, like that is a huge shakeup. But like while I was in Europe, I was paying attention to the scores and what was going on. And it just seemed like everything was off the freaking rails. So I wasn't surprised. I think DNVR had a very good take on this, where like they of course were shocked because everyone loves Coach Malone. Um, but their point about how it was the Cronkies just trying to shake something up and bring some life back into this team. Like I kind of wish Malone were still around, but I think there's something to that. I think this will probably or hopefully shake things up because otherwise, I think we were just going to be stuck in the play-in. Like think about how catastrophic that downfall is for the season.
Things were going bad, man, and I guess that was the Cronkies' response to it. Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke were at the games more the last few weeks. I think they were really tuned into this and thinking of what they need to do. It sounds like, according to Josh Kroenke, this was going to be the plan in the offseason regardless. As the day went on, I started off pissed off, but I started to get a little bit. I started to see the upside of it a little bit more, and understanding. We started to hear that, hey, Malone lost the locker room. Like, guys were not responding to his messages. They were not they weren't resonating with the guys. There was a report today from The Athletic that prominent players like Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, they were getting a little. Their patience was running thin with the fiery takes and like fiery coaching that Malone provides. And I wonder if you've already lost the locker room, as much as this sucks, do you think it was probably a good move? I guess we'll see. But do you think it was probably a good move if your team's just not responding to you anymore?
Yeah, I mean, as Evan said, like, was not surprised by the move, but I think we're all just kind of surprised by the timing of the move. Like, we were all expecting, as soon as we get knocked out of the playoffs, like, we're probably done. Like, Malone's gone. At least I thought Booth was going to be gone regardless, but was very surprised by it. But to your question, Cam, about like what Malone was about, how he lost the locker room, and one of his most recent, I think it was his last post game interview, he said nobody watches film, and so I don't know if that was an indication to the Cronkies that, wow, Malone, you're not doing your job, and you just admit it to everybody watching this press conference that nobody's watching film.
I think the eyes had just kind of been a little bit more focused in on, obviously when you start losing games, things really seem to blow up, and there's more speculation. I remember seeing some tweets and some different clips of, guys on the bench starting to get after it at each other, getting each other's necks a little bit. That Peyton Watson AG clip, I think that some of this was just kind of boiling. And then I did listen a little bit to Josh Kroenke's interview that he did with Altitude and Vic Lombardi, and he kind of was just like, it's been growing, and we'd win 3 games, and everything seems okay, and it's kind of masked. So I think we're all in that same boat. Like, we saw something like this happening. I personally didn't think it would be Malone going. I've always been a Malone fan, a stan, you might say. Like, I've always kind of been in his corner as a fan, and I definitely thought it would just be Booth. I think the piece of them both going is really intriguing, though. So
I feel like maybe they believed they just needed a clean break to reestablish culture, try to salvage some respect from the players, I guess. But it's interesting that like every source I've heard about this, they've said the same thing, how Malone and Booth were at each other's throats like the whole season. And the culture had completely shifted in the last 2 years, which is unbelievable. Like, like it doesn't feel that long ago where everything was quite loose and the vibes were great for the championship run.
Right, and I think a lot of that had to do with Tim Conley, obviously.
Yeah.
He was the kind of the architecture or guy that did this. Like, he was architect of this team, and Calvin Booth came in and was an inside hire. And he did put the finishing touches on the team. He got KCP. He got Bruce Brown. He gets a lot of credit for what he did for this team, obviously. But I think the DNVR guys talked about this, but the vibes were different. When Tim Conley left, he was definitely like a family kind of guy. Like everyone in the organization felt like they were on the same page. And Booth came in and he had kind of a different vision. And he kind of seems like kind of a strange guy too, just not very charismatic either. But there was a lot of infighting. And Malone and him did not see eye to eye. They would go weeks at a time, apparently, where they didn't talk. And they always jabbed at each other in media sessions. It was always really weird. Like, and this wasn't a secret. Like, they were saying these things publicly. And I think, to your point, Evan, I think the Cronkies were just like, we need some adults in the room. I think they did this with Nikola Jokic in mind. They were like, we have the best player on the planet right now. We need to do everything we can to maximize his abilities. And we're not getting that right now. And we have our two of our main leaders of the team fighting and not seeing eye to eye. So I think it was just sort of a clean break. I think both of these two men's egos got in their way and ultimately got them fired. I hate it for Malone because I really liked Malone too, Ken. Was a big Moach guy. So it sucks and the timing is awful, but I can understand the Cronkies' perspective on this at least.
Yeah, and I do think, to follow up on your point about Jokic, if we didn't have Jokic, I'm pretty sure one of those guys would be staying with the organization. And I think this is probably just a move by the Cronkies, like you said, to show Jokic where their loyalty lies.
And that they needed a change. This team,
Yeah, and one of my biggest fears throughout all this saga that's been happening and unfolding recently, I've been worried, like, oh my God, would Jokic potentially leave us? Considering that we're falling apart and the organization is just, like, not focused, and Jokic is obviously frustrated by the results. I'm curious what Pat and Ken think about this, but I think the Cronkies might have made a good move if we look at it from that perspective, but curious what you guys think.
Yeah, it's really tough, and it's just the timing of it all is like what throws me off the most. And like I said before, I think they were already set on this decision, whether it be at the end of the season or right now. And just to switch things up, I think that's the biggest reason they did this, was to switch things up. But I almost wonder if like the Cronkies were trying to save their own butt by saying, or by getting rid of them now, versus if somehow we made it deep into the playoffs, then it would be harder to let go of Coach Malone.
That's a good point. Pat.
I think that Pat makes a great point with that, because now it's like, maybe we only make it through a round, or maybe we get bounced even first round. And I think that there's a little bit more of a built-in excuse now. I think that the Cronkies kind of covered themselves up a little bit. They gave it a shot, right? They tried to give the Nuggets a kick in the butt, get them working, get them back into the swing of things. But I think that Pat that's a really good point. And I think that I'm a little bit sensitive to some Cronky things here, because a lot of people in St. Louis hate the Cronkies. They can't stand them. And I was just talking to a couple of students that are we're pretty invested in the NBA, and they're like, what do you think about it? What's going on? Whatever. And they're like, who fired him? And I was like, oh, like the owner's Cronky. And they all like perked up, and they're like, Cronkies. And I guess that we haven't had too bad of an experience with them. But a lot of people are very, hesitant on what they decide to do and kind of some of their ownership qualities. And they've helped us obviously win and create a couple of great organizations in the Denver area. But I think that they have pretty calculated moves. There have been times that they've seemed a little bit cheap at times, which is pretty commonly known and definitely known here in St. Louis. But I think that they saw an opportunity to kind of knock two things out at once, both covering themselves up if things go wrong, and then also like producing some sort of change that obviously has been needed. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
And just the point of the Cronkies and their ownership and the teams that they all have, they've been successful. And I think they're serious when it comes to when they know they have it. And I think we've always kind of heard they're cheap. I think they're cheap on some things, but when it comes to like, we have the pieces, we have the guy right now, I think they're a bit better than people give them a little credit for. We've seen it with the Rams. We've seen it with the Avalanche and stuff. So yeah, it sucks though. You wish Malone got one more chance. Isn't that crazy? He gets one chance after the championship run. They go out in 7 to Minnesota, and then he doesn't. That's it. There's nothing more after that. And it sucks that it happened this fast, and the relationship with the guys and him, I'm sure, are fine, but I just don't know if they needed his coaching style anymore. Like, I think Malone was great at building up this culture and putting them where they are, making them tough right now, making guys like Jokic and Murray ready for this moment and ready to be at the top. But I don't know how much further he can take them anymore being that fiery guy. I think they sort of need a tactician, X and O's guy. Not that Malone wasn't a good X and O's guy, but someone like there's guys in the league that we see now, like a Dagnall or like guys like that seem to just have a different sort of temperament when it comes to this stuff. And I don't know if the Nuggets are in that era anymore where they need a coach like Malone.
I was just going to say, sorry, Ev, but
Okay.
with the Malone piece, like, he was the perfect coach to grow a Jokic, to grow a Jamal, to grow kind of a culture, and giving them something to believe in, giving them hope that, we can be a really good basketball team if we do these things and we work hard and we do all the kind of classic like basketball coach things. And I think that was, so important over the last 10 years. And I think it's just gotten to a point now where if the locker room's not responding to that anymore and there needs to be a different kind of push in a different direction, then I think that's kind of what they ended up settling on.
I think it's interesting though how he was such a good culture guy for so long. And one of the common themes with him being fired is he lost the locker room. He lost the culture. I I don't know if I understand
They
like what
just might
happened
be
there,
in a different place. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
weird.
could
It
be.
is weird.
Just not the right personality for the moment, which is God, such a shame.
It's weird because we
Because
just won a
like,
championship.
because again, like at DNVR, where I get all my information, apparently they were talking about like the quotes and like all the sayings that he brought to the city, man. Like the "Who's your daddy" with the Lakers, like that would not be a thing without Malone.
Take that L on the way out. He wasn't afraid to call
Yeah,
out the big markets and for Celtics fans and Lakers fans to come into Denver and call them out and say, this is the Nuggets house.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You do. I mean, you just gotta trust that the Cronkies have a greater picture outside of. I mean, this is still fresh news out of what we're all kind of dwelling on with the firing of Malone, and because the Cronkies are successful owners not only with Denver sports with the Nuggets and Avs, but in other markets too with other sports. So I do think that the timing of it is definitely in a sense disrespectful to Malone. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, after last night's win, and we'll get into that a little
Time
bit
will
later
tell.
in this next. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
For sure.
Ev, do you got to head out?
Yeah, I'm out of here, fellas. But
All right. Ev Dog's
Good.
going to head out. Thanks for joining us, man. We'll see you Monday night.
all right, see you, Wash Kings Nation.
Good luck at the volleyball game.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye,
Bump
fellas.
set spike.
Later.
Later. Yeah, great points, fellas, on the Kroenke stuff and the Mike Malone firing. Really good stuff. I do think Josh Kroenke's got the Nuggets' best interest in mind. I do trust that he knows what he has with Jokic. But we're going to head on to our next segment. We're going to be talking about the predecessor to Mike Malone, David Adelman, and his debut last night. The Nuggets win 124-116. Obviously, this was Adelman's debut and our first look at what he would do with him being the decision maker. He started Jalen Pickett. That wasn't a surprising thing, but what was surprising and something I want to note is that this was the first game since December 5th that Westbrook had played under 20 minutes. He played 17 minutes. I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting rotation decision that Adelman made, that he wanted to go with the young guy Pickett, and he was huge. Pickett played 31 minutes, shot 5 of 7 from 3, hit some really big shots down the stretch, which was really cool to see. What's funny is that was a Calvin Booth guy, and Malone wasn't on board at first, so kind of interesting there. But Jokic, just to kind of touch all the pieces here, Jokic was less involved on the offensive side, but I think that's how he sort of wants to play. The starting group had all had 20 points each, except for Pickett, who had 18. CB had 25. AG and MPJ had 21. Jokic had 20. I think this is how Jokic would prefer to play, and I also thought he was more engaged on the defensive end, and he was more vocal. He was talking more in huddles. But we'll just get your guys' thoughts. What did you think about the game last night and David Adelman's debut?
I thought David did a great job, and obviously on national television, it was on ESPN, in a game where the Nuggets have to respond, they responded. And that's not only a tip to the cap to David Adelman, but to the rest of the guys, and especially Nikola Jokic. I thought that he pick up his leadership. Because we talked about it before. He's more of a guy that leads by example. But I thought last night he led vocally. He facilitated a lot more vocally. There's the clip of him on the bench writing up a play. And so I just thought that was great to see all around. And after the game, he kind of had lost his voice. And so I think what Jokic saw out of all of this is that nobody's job is safe, including his own. And so I think he realized the fact that Mike Malone is gone. I think he might have thought, this might be partially my fault because I haven't done. I could always do a better job, and he said that before. I could always do a better job, and I think he realized that vocally he needs to step up because this team does need a leader. What are your thoughts, K-Bear?
I was just going to say, I think that he seemed to bear that burden a little bit more, accept some responsibility, as you were saying, Pat. Not necessarily that this is his fault by any means, but in a good way, it kind of is his fault. We are where we're at because this guy is going bananas, having the best season that he's ever had, and he's had some damn good seasons, one of the best seasons we've ever seen from any player. So by default, it kind of is his fault that we needed to make this push. And I hope that this is more than just one game, obviously. I think that the Nuggets have always needed a little bit more of a vocal leader, and I think Malone's really taken that role. He's been the guy at the podium. He's been the guy speaking up on behalf of the Nuggets. He's been standing up for the Nuggets against big market teams. And I think without that presence, both good and bad. I mean, Malone definitely loved his time in front of the camera, but he was a great presence for the Nuggets. I think that Jokic is now going to have to grow a little bit as a leader, and I think that that's a step that us as Nuggets fans have always been wondering what that's going to look like. I don't think we ever really considered, maybe it's going to have to be Malone leading this process, but it was really cool to see him, showing a little bit more emotion, picking up some of the younger guys, picking up Jalen Pickett after, a nice play defensively. And then there's his interviews after the game too, where he's perking up and his eyes get all big when he's talking about Jalen Pickett to Katie Wingy. And I think that this could be, another big step for Jokic in his career. And maybe he'll just be a player coach like Bill Russell was back in the day.
I was gonna say this might be player coach Yoke era. I don't know. There's been games where we've seen him be vocal and stuff. Obviously, this isn't just the first time, but it just with the timing of it and Moach just being fired, it doesn't feel like a coincidence that Jokic was vocal and was dapping people up and was handshakes and writing on the whiteboard in the huddles and lost his voice like Pat noted on the post game interview. You could tell Jokic might be entering a new era, like you mentioned, Bear. This might just be the time that he has to kind of be the vocal leader and actually step up in that way because, frankly, our vocal leader is gone. That was always Malone. So maybe Jokic is stepping into that role. I do want to mention that quote he had after the game. He said, "People say that we were vulnerable, but the beast is always the most dangerous when they're vulnerable." Maybe he woke up the beast, and he's saying that about Josh Kroenke and the decision that they made, that they might have woke up the beast. Do you think that Jokic understands or maybe thinks that this team still has it in them to make a far run or make a push with now this wide? Their eyes are open now. They're open. Hey, people got fired, and it might have been our faults. It's time to step up and start to play into our potential. Do you think Jokic kind of sees that, or is that just more Jokic proverb Serbian stuff?
Whether he truly believes it or not, I think he knows that he has to exemplify that.
Sure.
And he knows that guys are going to look to him. I think there's part of him that knows he knows what he's doing, and he could very well coach the Nuggets to success in some sort of way. And I think part of me too is maybe he's been chomping at the bit for a little bit more of this chance to really be that vocal leader. Which sometimes is frustrating. It's dude, you're the best player in the league. You could have been doing this. And obviously it's one game in, but I think he definitely feels that pressure. And it was really cool to see him take an extra step to be that guy. One game in, obviously, but it's pretty cool to see it. and I'm intrigued. Definitely, it made the end of the season a lot more exciting to watch and a lot more interesting for us to kind of take some deeper dives into what they're looking like each night.
Sure did. Pat, what do you think?
Yeah, first of all, what an absolute banger of a quote. You could just add that to the Jokic-isms, I feel like. But no, I think there's definitely some truths to it. I think Jokic was one of the closest guys in the locker room to Malone. And I think it was D-Line on the DNVR podcast said, it almost feels like he lost a family member. And so I think Jokic feels that their commander-in-chief is gone. And so he's the leader of the pack now. He's got to lead the soldiers into war, and it's crunch time, and seems like the whole team as a whole came out pissed off last night and got the job done.
The arc of Jokic's career has been so interesting because like he started off as like deferring, like I like to pass when everyone else is involved. That's how I like to play, and I think that's how you play basketball. Then he had a step where it was like, oh, I can score every single time. And he learned how to become a scorer, and then he became an MVP level player, and we won the finals. Like, and now he might be at a point in his leadership style where he does need to be vocal and be the guy that's the face of this team finally. Because I feel like that was always Moch, and he was always the guy that with the quotes and everything. Now we might be just in a new evolution of Jokic now, which is just really interesting to see to me.
It's crazy to me how much he continues to evolve. Like if like every year
as a player, as a person, all of it. Yeah.
And there's always a challenge for him to do something, and he goes above and beyond. He starts shooting way better from three. He starts, actually, I mean, not that it's ever been an issue, but like we've always like, oh, it'd be cool if he actually averaged a triple-double. Now he's doing it with a 30-point triple-double. He just continues to become just more and more unbelievable. And I think now this leadership role is really going to round out what a true legend he's really going to go down to be. And I would love it if this could really kind of kickstart that kind of part of his career where he's leading a dynasty. He is like the vocal leader of a dynasty, and we can start racking up a few championships along the way.
I'm not worried about Jokic leaving. I know that there was rumor, like, Lakers fans are always going to put the Jokic in the Lakers jersey now when things like this happen. And I get it. Everybody thinks, oh, the coach is fired. That must mean maybe the star player will leave or something. I don't think Jokic is like that. I think he said that he wants to be the Tim Duncan for the Nuggets. I think he means that. I don't see him packing up his life and going anywhere else. And I think he really, truly found a home here and wants to see it out with his organization. So I'm not worried about that. I kind of thought that was silly, but any more thoughts on last night's game, David Adelman's debut, any of that?
Yeah, I know you talked about it briefly with Jalen Pickett. Obviously, he played a lot of minutes, and
he was
just
amazing.
wonder. Yeah, I really don't think that he would have gotten that many minutes, and Russ definitely would have gotten a handful of those minutes. As
Russ might have closed that game.
He definitely probably would have. And I think Jalen Pickett played pissed off too, because I think
he's proven it. Like yeah.
I think he knew that he wasn't necessarily Malone's guy, and he was more of Calvin Booth's guy. And so I think that's part of the whole butting heads between those two, of Booth and Malone. So I think, I don't know. I'm starting to believe in this change a little bit more. Definitely sucks because it's
yeah. I think it, like, just your point with the young guys, like I think it's freeing up some of those guys that didn't really know if Malone had their back, which is weird to say about him because we think he's a really good connector with players, but it's no secret that he didn't love rookies. He wanted veterans. He wanted Justin Holiday. He wanted KCP. He wanted those guys, and I think it's a good point to say that about Pickett because he played with the confidence and freedom that he may not have. So I wonder if we're going to see that now in the next two games, and then in the playoffs we'll have to see. But well, let's move on. Let's just take a look ahead at the last two games of the season a little bit. We got the Memphis Grizzlies, then the Rockets. And so I want to shout out Ryan Blackburn real quick on Twitter. He did a little bit of a graphic about what can happen, what the possible outcomes were. And he said if Denver goes 2-0, they're guaranteed the 4th seed because Memphis picks up an extra loss because we beat them. Denver wins via conference record over the Clippers, so they would be the 4 seed. So these are just some standing stuff. But if Denver goes 1-1 and all three of Denver, LA, Memphis finish 49-33, it goes to the Clippers at 4, the Nuggets at 5, and Memphis at 6. And then if Denver goes 0-2, they will likely be in the play-in, especially if Golden State wins in their final 2 games. Denver would lose the head-to-head tiebreaker versus Memphis and Minnesota. So those are some of the things that are on the line here with these next 2 games. 2-0, you might be the 4th seed. 1-1, you're looking at 5 or 6 probably. 0-2, you're probably looking at the play-in. What do you think, guys? Do you think what are we gonna do? Are we gonna go 2-0, 1-1? I don't know. These are tough teams. Did the vibes keep going from last night?
I think that what's interesting is that, game 82 against a Rockets team that's already secured the 2 spot. I think that could at least add a little bit of a ripple into the fact, are they going to sit their guys? Is everybody going to play? Is everyone going to rest? Rockets kind of have some control on some of the seeding, so maybe it's matchup dependent for them, kind of shaping up what that play-in situation looks like. I think that against the Grizzlies, it's going to be a really interesting game because it's 2 teams that have just lost their head coach and are kind of figuring out an identity. I think we win one of those 2. I'd love to confidently say 2-0, but I think after only 1 game with it, you want to see that energy level and that leadership role from Jokic, and then seeing the young guys really playing with that fire as well beyond 1 game. So I'll call it 1-1. I'll say maybe a loss to the Grizzlies and then a win against the Rockets. But I think it's a very, very good chance that we go 2-0.
I agree. I think we go 1-1, except I think that our win is against the Grizzlies and our loss is against the Rockets. Mainly just because we'll be at home for the Grizzlies game. And so I'm sure the guys are excited to be back home and show Denver what they're about. It's just a crazy time to be a Denver Nugget, whether you're a player, a fan, or anybody else in the organization. So it'll be interesting how the rest of this season shapes up. But I do think that the guys will come out with fire. Even if they do have a loss, I bet it'll be in a close game.
I was going to say they're probably going to go balls to the wall here. I think Adelman, no BS, came in the locker room last night. They showed that video, and he was just like, hey, this is all cool and all, whatever, but we got 2 more games left against 2 playoff teams, and we have to control our fate here. So I think their eyes on the prize. I think it's playoff mode now. We don't know if Jamal Murray's going to be back. We don't know if he's going to be back for the playoffs. So we almost got to toss him aside. But I think the team is going to play hard. I think Jokic is going to show up, and I'll do the optimistic side. I'll go 2-0. Super producer Matt said 2-0 too, and I like it. He said the beast was awoken. So I like that. I'm going to go 2-0 as well, and hopefully that puts us at 4. If not, let's just kind of talk real quick about some matchups that we like here. My favorite option would be 4 seed versus Memphis at 5, if that's even possible. I don't know. But I want Memphis in the playoffs. That's who I would say first. Second, I would say Clippers, even though that's scary to me. Kawhi in the playoffs. It's still, they've been hot. And then obviously I think we've done this. I think we've avoided Minnesota, which is great. But if we fall into the plan, we might be seeing them. But who are some of the matchups you want to see, and at what position do you want the Nuggets to be at?
I mean, I honestly kind of like the way it's shaping up right now. I think if the season were to end today, we would face the Clippers. And I just feel like in the last couple of years, we've always kind of had their number. And it's kind of like a middle of the pack team where we do play pretty well against those mid to high level tier teams. So I think that where we're at right now, or like if the season were to end today, we'd be in a good spot facing the Clippers.
I think that Grizzlies matchup's a nice one. Both us and the Grizzlies don't play like any defense at all. So I think that if we can decide to play some better defense, which I think we saw a little bit of it last night in terms of Jokic not having the ball in his hands all the time, and having a little bit more energy for the defensive side. And I also think that us as a team, we usually kind of kick it up a little bit for playoffs in terms of defense. So I think that Grizzlies matchup should be, definitely winnable. I think most all these series are winnable. I think it's really going to come down to, how other guys perform. If Jamal's going to be a piece, that's one thing that kind of want to get your guys' take on. Like, what do you think's going on with Jamal, and how is his presence really going to affect, this upcoming 2 games before playoffs and then including the playoffs?
I think this is interesting because there was like the theories going out there that when the firings happened, there were some people that were saying, "Oh, this might mean that Jamal's done for the season," and they were just going to be like, "You know what? We're making these changes now. We're going to be missing Murray. Let's clear house and just get started on this search." I hope that's not true because I've also heard the theory that he's fine and he'll be back. But if he's back or not, the major concern is if he does come back is his conditioning. We saw this last year. It's almost like the same thing. If he does play, I don't know how well he's going to be looking in that first round. So I'm very concerned about that. So I'm hoping that we can get as good of a first round matchup as we can, because we might need to, go through that and fight through that first round and hopefully get to the second, and hopefully Jamal's back in shape by then. But what do you think, Pat?
I agree completely. I feel like we've seen this movie before with Jamal in a couple of years where, especially last year, he comes out sluggish in the first round. So I think if he's healthy enough, I get the idea of just sitting him the rest of the regular season, but I think if he's feeling good enough, at least get him some minutes against the Rockets in that game.
Yeah, because they said he was doubtful for tomorrow, I think. So it sucks, dude. And we'll get into trade talk stuff after the season, but I don't know. We'll be looking at some things, that's for sure. One thing that sucks is if we avoid the play-in, we'll probably most likely be in the 4 or 5 spot. That means second round OKC. So we kind of screwed ourselves there.
Assuming OKC doesn't lose in the first round, which they wouldn't. But
OKC, if they play Minnesota or something, or Golden State, dude, the West is stacked.
It really is.
I can't believe how good it is 3 through 8 right now. Well, is there any closing thoughts on standings or the remainder of the season, fellas?
I think
Let's go Nuggets.
Scared me there.
Pat does that way better than I could. So I'll let him
Kyle Speller.
Kyle Speller. Shout out.
I'm
Speller.
glad that the Cronkies didn't fire Kyle Speller.
Oh, for real.
I'm glad that they kept him around for some vibes. I think one thing that I'm interested with Pat is the fact, going back home tomorrow, what are the vibes going to be like in Ball Arena? What are the vibes going to be like in the organization?
I hope rejuvenated.
I was going to say, maybe coming back to that home court, the vibes are a little bit higher. Maybe that'll really kickstart them even more. I think that'll be really weird for them too, going through their day-to-day, going through a practice in their gym, going through pregame without Malone, all those things that they're used to, especially as this core has grown together. I think that it'll be emotional in some ways, and hopefully that they can use that for the right way as we finish out the season and head into playoffs. But I'm interested in what the vibe will be like around Ball Arena.
For sure, man. For sure. I guess we'll see. I hope that the Beast Awakening thing is like a playoff slogan and the Nuggets go on a run, because how fun would that be after the 4-game losing streak? Our head coach gets fired. Imagine if all of a sudden we went on this crazy run and made the Western Conference Finals or something. You never know. I'm just hoping for some fun playoff moments and memories, because it could be our last with some of these players. So we'll see. And if no one else has any closing thoughts, all right.
No, sir.
If we make a deep run, it's going to make things even more complicated, though.
It totally will.
That is true. I guess it depends on what,
even more complicated,
on who looks like what when that happens, and if it happens.
Not that I don't want that, but
right. But
it's wait, they actually had it this whole time. Do we make any changes with the team?
That new GM search, I don't know. He might come in and think we're getting Jokic an All-Star, which I hope is what happens. But hey, we'll see.
You also wonder if they do make a deep run and even somehow make a finals, is he a front runner for the coaching job next year?
I think he's got to be, dude, because if they make the finals or something, it's hard to be actually we're going to take someone else.
PK's DK put Adelman in as coach of the year.
Yeah, can we
Might
can
as
we
well.
bet, can we bet on that?
That'd be cool
All
if you
right.
could.
That would be cool. All right, fellas, we're gonna head out of here. That's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. You can find us on Instagram at the Wash Kings Pod, or on TikTok at the Wash Kings. We're gonna be posting content there all week, and we're ready to post a lot of short form stuff. So, fellas, that was fun. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you next time.
Night, y'all. Cheers.